What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the NHL Offseason Preview here at Vendetta Sports Media. Once again, I'm Chris Bagdonis, showing you the way, and this time around it will be the Anaheim Ducks. You can see the Honda Center behind me. They have not seen much playoff hockey in recent years, but it is looking a bit better on the orange side of California hockey. You have some young talent there. Obviously, we will dive right into it. But for the Anaheim Ducks, they have the third overall pick in this year's NHL draft. Obviously, a lot of talent near the top of the draft. And if you remember the Chicago Blackhawks episode I did last week, I had them picking Ivan Demidov, second overall. And just for consistency's sake, we will be saying that the Anaheim Ducks are selecting none other than the Belarusian-born defenseman from Michigan State, Artyom Levshunov. And again, let's just share my screen right here so you can all see what I mean here. The Anaheim Ducks, again, I'll be doing a bit of a speed run this time around because of course, cap friendly. I only have a few more weeks with it before they shut their doors with the Capitals owning it. You see right here that $33 million in cap space. They have a lot to play with this summer. I definitely see a move like they made with signing Alex Killorn a couple of years ago, something along those lines of bringing in a veteran piece at a respectable cap hit. You know, you don't really have anyone to pay the big bucks to yet, but obviously over the next 2 or 3 years, there will be a crop of players looking for a nice raise. But let's just take a look at all these picks. You see here, you have a total of 7 picks in the first 3 rounds of the 2024 NHL draft. So that solid farm system that they have been building up, obviously Pat Verbeek is running the show. It will be even stronger after we see the NHL draft take place in the next few weeks at the Sphere, of course, in Las Vegas. And looking here at the forward situation, you do have some cornerstone guys. Obviously, Troy Terry, that's someone you want to be building around. Trevor Zegras, he had an injury-plagued year. A lot of questions being asked about his trade availability. I, for one, think that Anaheim is going to stick with him for at least 1 more year, let him get healthy, and, kind of see what they have with him, because obviously the talent is there, and I'm sure teams are calling about him, because if you can kind of put him around the right pieces, and of course with the right coaching staff, I think you could absolutely have a number 1 center on your hands, one of those top-line type of players. You look elsewhere, you have Ryan Strome. Frank Vetrano had a really good year for them. He's going to be a free agent in 2025. Former Islander waiver claim Ross Johnston. He's still under contract for the next 2 seasons. And then you get into their really solid young crop of players. You look, of course, at Leo Carlson. He was, I believe, the 2nd overall pick, or the 3rd in last year's NHL draft, number 2. And Cutter Gauthier, the former Flyers top 5 pick, of course. That whole trade was definitely sent shockwave through the NHL community in how a young player kind of got his way out of Philadelphia, but he is going to certainly be a part of the picture for the Ducks moving forward. And other guys, you see Mason McTavish, Sam Colangelo, you have a bunch of RFAs too. I would think at least guys like Max Jones and Isaac Lundestrom, they will be returning on some form of deal next year. And then you look at the blue line. Obviously, Cam Fowler has been a staple for Anaheim for the better part of a decade. Radko Gudas is another free agent pickup. He's going to be there to provide some protection, some muscle for those young guys. And another interesting name, of course, is Pavel Mintyukov, one of their young and up-and-coming pieces. He's a really exciting young defenseman that I think will eventually take the reins from Cam Fowler this time next year. And another guy, Owen Zellweger. Don't know much about him again. I will never claim to be a top trusted expert in young talent, but I definitely try to do my research and know what I'm talking about. And of course, one of the main elephants in the room, of course, is John Gibson. He has kind of voiced his dissatisfaction with the Anaheim team and the direction they're going in. Obviously, you see he's age 30. He had some chances at the Stanley Cup with them back when their old core of Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry were still in charge, but I could definitely see a trade of the former really star number 1 goalie. Obviously, he's fallen off a little bit, but John Gibson, I think his days in Anaheim have got to be numbered at this point. Lucas Dostal, he will probably be, manning the crease for them moving forward. And then you just look here, all they've got is Brock McGinn. I'm sure they're going to get him off the injured reserves, have him come back. and obviously eat at a little bit of that $33 million they have in cap space. But you look elsewhere, they have a lot of young talent in the AHL and elsewhere throughout their system. Obviously, you see I have elite prospects here. Unfortunately, they just restarted their calendar for 2024-25, so unfortunately we won't be able to look at their full stats. I'm not a full expert, unfortunately, at how to navigate, but they do have some good pieces. Obviously, Rodwin Dioniccio, he is going to probably be in their NHL system within the next 2 years. A fifth-round pick in 2023. He had a really good season in the OHL, and obviously moving up to the professional league over in Switzerland. Other guys, you look at Artyom Galimov, another solid piece, a fifth-round pick in 2020. He's put up some decent points over in Russia in the MHL, of course, but you'd have to figure after some more seasoning in the KHL, he may make it to the AHL at some point in the next few years. But again, enough of that. I don't want to be taking up more time than needed. Again, you see these guys in their system. They have a lot of pieces to work with, and I don't really know if it's time for them to make that big swing and, add a star player. I don't think they're quite that far along in their rebuild yet. But again, they are in an interesting spot. They have young talent. They have some win-now players. But without further ado, let's check in at Cap Friendly's Armchair GM, see what the people are saying about the Anaheim Ducks. Let's see what Duck Dynasty has got. Obviously bringing back a bunch of their RFAs. I like a name like Jordan Martinook, playoff performer. Guy knows how to get into the dirty areas and score. $4 million is a fair cap hit. I've seen a lot of reports that, these power forwards that, plot headlines in the playoffs are definitely going to get paid handsomely after the type of physicality we've seen in this year's playoffs. And trade number one, the New Jersey Devils getting John Gibson and Frank Vetrano, along with the first-round pick from the Edmonton Oilers this year, in exchange for former Devils top prospect Alex Holtz and their own first-round pick, which I believe is in the top 10. That would be a very interesting trade for Anaheim. You add another scoring winger, highly talented young guy like Holtz. He definitely fits into the picture as a right-handed winger. You see a lot of those lefty guys like Jazigras and Cutter Gauthier. He would fit in there. And then you see another move here of adding Colton Parayko from the St. Louis Blues for Jackson Lacombe and a third-round pick. I definitely see them being in the market for a defenseman. I think a name like Brett Pesce makes a ton of sense for them. But I don't know if they would want to take on Colton Parayko right now, and I don't know if that's a move the Blues would really want to do. I think if you move Parayko out, I think it would be to a contending team and, not more of a bottom feeder that is not really in the picture. And here we see that they won the Patrick Laine sweepstakes, getting a second-round pick out the door for the former 40-goal scorer. I could see it happening. I did have a conversation with Trey, though. I think it makes much more sense for Patrick Laine to be on a contending team and to be in a better environment, not really like a bottom-feeding, lottery team, because obviously that's where he has been in Columbus for the past few years, and it didn't really go too well for him. So we'll take a look here. Bringing back Adam Henrique, I could see that maybe from a Duck side. I don't really know from Henrique if he wants to go back there. Obviously, he's in the Stanley Cup final right now with the Oilers. I think he's going to want to try and spend the last few years of his career really pushing to win that Stanley Cup. Look here, it's an interesting move, moving Zegras out to the wing, having McTavish as your number one center with Laine. I definitely don't hate this type of setup. Martinook, obviously a fourth liner, that's a bit pricey, but that's just the cost of doing business in the NHL these days. Tristan Leno and Cam Fowler, again, this is another guy I didn't really talk about. 2022 second round pick. He's definitely, you'd figure, will make it in the picture at some point. But it's definitely interesting. There's guys, some fans here of this move, but let's take a look at some other worthwhile. Sergei Bobrovsky. I do not think he's getting traded, so let's find another one. Ducks offseason. Again, all the RFAs coming back makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Ryan Strome to the Kings, and they're retaining $2.5 million for Arthur Kaliev and a third-round pick. That's interesting. I do not think that these two teams would be making a deal. I just don't think that makes sense. I think Kaliev is definitely leaving the Kings, but it will not be to the Anaheim Ducks. And Frank Petrano, I think there's a chance he gets traded. I think they do really like him. I think you'd have to give up more than just two young roster players, prospects. I think he's worth a first-round pick because he put up 30 goals on a really bad team. He's on a very, very good contract, less than $4 million next season, or I believe it might be right. Yeah, $3.6 million. You're going to have to make the Ducks really consider with a good offer if they want to give him up. And then here you give up Trevor Zegras for Patrick Laine and Elvis Merzlikins. And you give up John Gibson, so that's kind of a hand-in-glove replacement. I don't really know if that's what the Ducks would opt for. Yes, I agree with this. If you trade Zegras for Patrick Laine, that heavily favors the Columbus Blue Jackets. Because you really don't know what Laine is going to look like. Obviously, we know he has all the talent in the world, but he's unfortunately going through a bit of a rough patch right now, personally, going through the NHL Player Assistance Program. And I just don't know if Anaheim's the place for him to really spread his wings and kind of get closer to that incredibly talented player we saw in Winnipeg long ago. But again, just something to think about. Let's take a look at one more. If Artyom goes number 2, I actually like this. Let's see. So they go for Marty Necas. I could see Anaheim at least making a play. They need talent. They need win-now players. Someone to kind of lift them up out of the floor of the NHL, and he's someone that could help them do that. Brett Pesce, again, that's someone I could really see them kind of circling in on. They also pick up David Jiricek for the 3rd overall pick. So that's an interesting type of move. If, Chicago decides to take him number 2, where does that put Anaheim? Do they just sit at 3 and take someone like Ivan Demidov? Again, in my mock draft of sorts, I have the Ducks taking Lev Shinov at number 3. And here they send out Frank Petrano and Lacombe for Marty Necas and Kotkaniemi. I don't know if that's going to be enough for Carolina. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if the Canes really consider that. Vetrano was a win-now player, but I don't know. Let's see, anyone else? More than value-wise. Again, we just saw what happened yesterday with Philip Hronek getting a very nice contract from the Vancouver Canucks. I think right-handed defensemen are a premium position in the NHL today, especially guys that can move the puck and are able to hold their own physically. I'm sure Anaheim is really hoping that Lev Shinov falls at number 3, but who knows? I mean, Seth Jones is not the player he used to be. Chicago could very well be circling in on him, but it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out. But regardless, let's create a team. And let's see what we can do. So, we have an empty tableau, empty palette. I'm just going to say, for argument's sake, that Brock McGinn comes back. But, I mean, in terms of the top 6, that really is what it could look like with Cutter Gauthier. Frank Petrano, of course. But we have to make this $33 million cap space work. So let's go to free agency. Again, you remember I mentioned Brett Pesce as a potential target for them. They need NHL level guys on the blue line. They only have 2 actual non-entry level contract guys. So let's get Brett Pesce in there. Let's find him. Brett Pesce. Let's give him 8 years. And I like someone did 6.75. I think that's a very fair value. So, that's not it. People, that's not it. I don't know how to undo this, but he is not worth $67.5 million. Let's just put him there. Again, people, let's just assume that let's actually create a player. I added 1 extra 0 there, people. My apologies. All right. So this is the actual Brett Pesce. This was a mistake. Let's go and see what kind of RFAs we can find. Let's start with our guys. So Trevor Carrick, kind of a veteran guy. I don't know if they're going to bring him back. Let's start with, actually, no, let's go to RFAs. Okay. Max Jones. Let's give him 2 years at 125. Scratch, roster player, whatever you want to put it as. Again, I've seen a lot of people, the Ducks trading their veteran players. I think they want to run it back. They want to kind of keep some consistency going. But that's just me. Let's go to Jackson Lacombe. He had a good year. Let's do 3 years, $3 million. Just for argument's sake. Let's see, who else? Row. I think I have enough zeros there. They do need a center. Again, I mentioned a guy like Jordan Martinook. I'm going to just get a center just for argument's sake. Kind of a win now guy like Teddy Bluger, sure. Let's keep looking a little bit more. Someone that is a legit fourth liner. These are talented guys. Let's see. How about Kevin Stenlund? I like that. 5 years, $2.4 million. Okay. 5 years, $12 million. Obviously, Stanley Cup experience with the Panthers. That's something I could absolutely see happening. Let's move him down here. And again, this is nothing special, people. This is just my iteration of the Anaheim Ducks. You're going to see many others, whether it's here or as the weeks go on. It's still $18 million in cap space. So let's get a John Gibson trade, because we've seen that, I'm having a hard time finding John Gibson, but let's say, again, he's American, so let's X out the Canadian teams. Let's say the Anaheim Ducks ship John Gibson out to, say, Carolina. Do I just click him? Add to trade. Yep, there we go. Okay. So, say John Gibson. Let's see if we can retain salary on him. There we go. So he's making $6.4 million for the next 3 seasons. Let's say that the Ducks are willing to bring it down to 4. And in exchange, let's say say the Ducks do Carolina a favor, and they take on someone like Freddie Anderson, or I think they're going to keep Kochetkov, Andrew Martin. Let's just say Freddie Anderson, because he didn't have a great playoffs. And again, let's say a 4th round pick. 4th round pick. Again, this is an upgrade for Carolina in net. You have a solid 2-man unit with Gibson and Kochetkov. Again, you might think I'm crazy. I just saw Freddie Anderson not have the greatest playoffs against the Rangers. I could see them, wanting to make a change in net, but let's do it. Submit the trade. Now you have Freddie Anderson and Lucas Dostal in net. And again, Freddie may not even be willing to waive his no-trade clause to Anaheim. But I just feel like these teams are going to want to keep a hold of cap space. They don't want to, Anaheim has no reason to go to the cap ceiling this year. But there's a lot of options, people. This is just what I thought. I thought, maybe Kevin Stenlund made sense. You can also flip-flop these lines as much as you want. You can have Ryan Strome down the middle. You have McTavish. Do this. Let's have Stenlund there. Let's put McTavish. I actually like putting Zegras on the wing. Let's have McTavish on the center, Cutter on the wing, and something like that. Again, $19 million in cap space. You have endless options you could go to. I just think it makes sense. Anaheim, they're going to want some veteran players. They're going to want some experienced players. You have Brett Pesce, a veteran top 4 blue liner. You could feasibly swap him out with Bryko Gudis. You could have Kevin Stenlund. You could have someone like Lomborg from the Panthers. You have a lot of different options that you can go to if you're Pat Verbeek. I think he's done a good job of building the system. Obviously, it's not Mike Grier. I think anyone can do better than him in San Jose, but obviously he is the first overall pick that he lucked out into. Let's do this. And there you go. This is just the way I could see the Anaheim Ducks doing business this summer, helping out a contending team like Carolina or any others. But again, it's going to be a very exciting offseason. The Stanley Cup could be had this Friday night in Edmonton. Game 6 coming up between the Oilers and Panthers. Everyone, I'm Chris Bagdonis. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Vendetta Sports Media NHL offseason preview. We will be coming out with more in the coming days and weeks. Again, everyone, hope you're enjoying this Cup final and the lovely weather, and we will see you all next time.